Hello again. It's another episode in the same week of the BBB podcast. This is part 2 of our discussion, although this one won't be necessarily as negative as the last one was. So that's a good. We're looking at the positives here because we are the smartest people on the planet. These people being Celiac Matt, SM Steven Streams, and Bauer Tendo, me. We've got it all figured out. We got all the fixes. So in our previous episode, we talked about the gaming collapse, gaming recession, gaming where the gaming industry where it's going, and just a lot of really red flags. And are they red flags? So kind of discussing those things and various topics kind of tossed into one. And we being the smartest people on earth, we've got fixes for it. We've got fixes for these things. So to kind of recap from the previous episode, some of the items we talked about. Prices going up in general. Having that AAA tag means you have a price tag, a specific price tag. Companies cutting content and then trying to sell us that said content for more, and that there are correct ways to do DLC and microtransactions. And that a lot of these companies, it seems like they go with the safe choice, or they go with these price inflation and DLC and all this stuff, because they're one fail away from being bought up by somebody else, going bankrupt, because they spend all their money and then they don't make all the money back because of reasons, whatever the reasons may be. And then consolidation, is it concerning? Is it not concerning? So those were the topics we talked about. So, Matt, you said you had some. I'm very interested, and then I want Scott to go next because he said some interesting things too that I'm very intrigued by. What are your fixes for these problems, or at least some of these problems?
So for me, this I think is one of the simplest fixes. Is one thing we all universally hate is when a game comes out and it's not ready. It's not ready. AAA, indie, whatever the heck it is. And this really should be a no-brainer, right? It's one of the most quoted video game exec lines of all time. A delayed game is eventually a good game, is the phrase. Now, I don't actually firmly believe that, because if a game's going to be bad, sometimes you just can't polish a turd enough. It's still going to be a turd. That for me is going to fix a lot of problems, because I absolutely hate day one patches. I hate games that come out with day one patches. And I get we live in a much more complicated gaming world. There's so much going on in the hardware, in the software, in the coding, all this stuff. There's so many things that you couldn't even account for that go wrong. So is it possible to catch all these bugs before it goes live? I don't know, but maybe do a better job of just play testing it. And this is where I think there is beauty. This might sound controversial. There is beauty in the beta, in the early access, in whatever it is. It's vital. And I think that's one reason why Diablo 4 is actually doing quite well, because a lot of the major games that launched recently, like their online has been quite terrible. Splatoon was an issue, Overwatch 2 was an issue. And Diablo, they had like 4 section like times where gamers could get in and play the game, and they just really vetted it out. And of course there's still things that they fix, but that's also kind of a game that's also being treated as game as a live service. They're going to be adding content. I get that. But for me, that would just be one of the most simplest fixes that you can do with the game is don't release it until it's ready. And that's going back to, does your boss, those working at the game companies, does your boss think that? Does your boss think that? Does the money guy think that? Like at some point you got to put out a game because you've spent so much money. I get that. But I just think we could do a better job of playtesting games. I know, like, can you imagine a game like Zelda getting early access though? Like they would make a lot of money on it and people could have found a lot of bugs. But one thing Scott told me is that one of the reasons they took so long to make that game is the devs went in and played it. They tried to break it. Like they played the game for
They
a
had
very
a
long
full year.
time.
The game was
Yeah.
finished last
A
year, and
full
they literally
year.
went, you know what, guys? Everybody just play the game. They played through the game multiple times over a year, and that game came out with one.
Like,
I've only seen one bug, and it was a duplicate glitch, and it's already been fixed.
yeah. So they really vetted their games. And I think more companies need to actually spend time vetting their games. So that's one potential fix I have. The biggest one, and this would probably be a reoccurring theme for me, is I think we need to trust the gamers to spend money on what has value. It will tell you what works and hopefully stops bad practices. But you always know there are going to be instances like the Brendan Frasers, the whale, where they're somehow still make their money and they're continue those bad practices. I think those are the two biggest fixes that we could have here. We make sure the games are just better tested before you go launch, especially if you're being touted as the gospel holy AAA game. Like, don't come out with a stinker. Just check some things that are groundbreaking. And I think Blizzard did actually learn from their Overwatch 2 launch. Like, they really learned and they really put Diablo to the test. I feel pretty confident in saying that. I think that they had a pretty successful launch. I think most would agree as well, given I don't like that their practice is that you're always online, essentially. It sucks.
And
Like,
you can lose your hardcore character if your internet connection cuts out.
yeah, there are some issues there, and that's more of a please don't pirate our game protection, and that's a conversation I can even fathom at this moment. But Zelda's a prime example of they vetted their game, they tested their game, it came up pretty well. And I think Diablo did a pretty good job with it, even though there's a few things I disagree with their model there. But really, I think we need to have trust in the consumer. I'm not going to buy a game that looks bad. In fact, it's gotten to a point where I don't pre-order anymore. I don't. I just straight up don't. And I think I don't know if that's being more common or less common. I don't have stats in front of me, but that's a fix too, is the consumer needs to drive it. So Twitch, as we talked about in the last podcast, made some terrible decisions. It blew up. They said, crap, all right, we better stop that. The consumer ultimately is what's going to drive what companies can get away with. Unfortunately, there are going to be the whales that let some bad practices get through. I get that. But that is the ultimate fix, is the market needs to be more transparent. Even though I hate how the internet has become a cesspool where we don't like something, so now I'm going to get a microphone and scream into the abyss. Honestly, when it comes to things like games, other than stupid stuff like, why is this character black? That makes me angry. It should be a straight white man. Like stupid crap like that, dumb, ignore it. But when it comes to like legitimate criticisms of like a game, like, why did you release this game? Because I can't play it. It's been a whole week and I can't play Overwatch. Like, that's bad. Right. And that is what's driving a lot of Overwatch. Overwatch has ebbed and flowed with the feedback. I think they're in a better spot than when they launched, given it's still, in our opinion, worse than Overwatch 1. Doesn't matter. They're letting the consumer drive it. And that is the ultimate fix for me. Broad statement for pretty much everything we talked about. I'm sure we'll kind of ebb and flow some conversation, but that to me is the resolution, is let the market decide. The moneymakers say, we want to make so much money. And the consumers say, nah. I think they have to change it. And that's one of the reasons why Microsoft was very, very transparent. They knew, like, if we monopolize these games and keep it in our systems and no one else's, we're literally walking away from money, one. But two, the consumers are like, what are you doing? We're done. We're done. AEW Fight Forever. You and Scott currently are done. Heck, I might be done, but that's more a reflection that I have no money at the moment. Bad practices should not be rewarded. Hopefully the consumer is the reason why.
I love that you mentioned pre-orders. I learned my lesson with that a while back with Metal Gear Solid 5. Pre-ordered that thing, which, I mean, I had every right to be hyped. I love Metal Gear Solid series. And the first half of that game was great. And the second half was not finished at all. And that was when Hideo Kojima had gotten the boot from Konami, and Konami decided that they just wanted to stop making video games at that point. But yeah, I like that you brought that up, because I don't do that anymore. I think Tears of the Kingdom was the only one in recent memory that I think of, like, I know that's going to be good, like, in some capacity, so I'm okay with it. Like, I'm looking forward to Pikmin 4. I'm so excited for Pikmin 4. I'm not pre-ordering that thing.
I was going to ask if that's a pre-order.
No.
My last two pre-orders were Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and God of War Ragnarok.
I didn't even pre-order God of War Ragnarok. I got it the day. I also have another rule. This has nothing to do with anything. I have another rule, and the pandemic kind of did this for me, especially when, like, with PS5's out and Xbox Series X is out and everything out. If I can't go into a freaking store, or if I can't go and put it in my cart and have it shipped to me, or I get it in my hands, that's what I say.
A middle finger.
I don't want your game. I don't want it right now.
So no Alan Wake 2 for Mike Bowerman?
That's a whole other ball game. That's a whole... And I actually was going to bring up that stupid, lame-ass excuse that they came up with. But anyway, I'll let you... So those are good fixes. I'm glad you brought up pre-ordering too, and the consumers have power. Scott, what are your fixes?
My fixes. So it's kind of interesting. I wonder if 10 years ago, there was a podcast or the equivalent of a podcast of a bunch of CD music fans talking about, we hate the rise of Spotify and Amazon Music. It's going to destroy the music industry. This is the worst. We have to stop it. 10 years now, I think the quality of music's pretty shitty, but is there any shortage of bands? Is music not thriving? It's definitely still thriving. It's still working out. All these artists saying like, oh, we're not getting enough money for our music streaming, so we want to still push CDs. Well, they still have their mansions and they still have their, private jets flying around. So I think a lot of it is just knowing the industry will change, and we're seeing it in video game right now. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it next. The gaming as a service. You could hate gaming as a service. You could hate not being able to buy your CDs physical and you only can get them on Apple Music. You may hate that movies now aren't coming to theaters first and then being available to stream. It's all coming out at the same time. But that's the future. And that's people are going to vote with their wallet. And to be honest, we're not going to live forever. There's a new generation ready. As much as I go and hate you Zoomers, you'll dance on my grave one day, and you're going to be the ones to decide what you're comfortable with, and you're already voting with your wallet that you're okay.
Not just any dance in your grave. They're going to do Fortnite dances.
They're going to Fortnite dance, and I'll flip you off.
And they're going to start flossing. There's going to be a party on your grave, Scott.
There will be a party on the grave. It's fine. Just know I'll be flipping you off from down below. But there you go. That's your right for being the ones who will inherit the earth from our generation. But gaming is going to survive. Is there going to be a recession? Definitely. Will there be studios crashing? Definitely. And gaming may look very much different 20 years from now than it does now. 20 years from now, everybody's going to have the Vision Pro 10, be playing their augmented reality games that they're not buying at all. They're paying $10 every month for a subscription or supporting for microtransactions. Who knows? And I do think a lot of current gamers, particularly the older ones, are going to be out. It's like, I grew up paying $20 for the game. Now it went up to 30, 40, 50, 60, but at least you paid that much and then you own the game. And now that line is getting blurred more and more and more. As far as fixes, going back to the gaming as a service model, I'm going to tell you a tale of two games. Two games that one is a blatant ripoff of the other. But they really got part of it very much right, especially with the newest installment of said other franchise coming out. And that's Path of Exile and Diablo. So I have a very complicated relationship with Path of Exile. I've talked about it a lot during this podcast. One thing that I do have to give them absolute credit for is their business model. So Path of Exile is 100% free. It has new content being added every 4 months, and it's pretty substantial content. You, without paying a single cent, can download Path of Exile, have over 100 hours of gameplay, not have to deal with any being like handicapped at all by not buying anything extra. You can have a complete game experience without spending a single cent. Now you may ask, how does this wonderful large game keep itself in business? Because of microtransactions. And what Matt was saying earlier, where microtransactions are okay in some situations, that is exactly the situation it is okay in. So I'm going to go and I think I said this before, so I'm just going to repeat it again. I've probably spent over $200 on Path of Exile on microtransactions.
You are the Brendan Fraser.
I am the Brendan Fraser. The funny thing is, though, I am not in the minority. The average amount, I've read some type of article, the average Path of Exile player has spent more on that game through microtransactions than, $60 that they would have spent, or even $70. And here is the reason why. We want to reward the developers. They gave us something with a lot of content. They didn't go and lock any gameplay stuff behind paywalls. So you know what? I want to go, and we feel like we got $50, $60, $70 worth of enjoyment from this game, and we want to support you. And yes, am I going to put that money towards the prettiest looking skins or the skins that look coolest to me? Definitely. But I'm doing that not necessarily because, you entice me to get these skins. I'm doing it because I want to reward the studio. every time they release new content every 4 months, it's substantial, and they come out with new skins along with it. And me as buying the skins when that happens is more of me voting with my wallet, saying, good job. This was a good expansion. I appreciate the effort you put into it. Now let's talk about another game called Diablo 4. Overall, really enjoying Diablo. One thing that is 100% unacceptable about Diablo is their microtransactions. $28 to buy a skin set. All right, yeah, that's maybe comparable to some of the skin sets you would pay for in Path of Exile. Here's the big difference. Diablo 4 costs $70 already. And they were pretty transparent that there was going to be microtransactions in that game. And I was defending it, saying like, oh, well, it'll probably be like $5 per skin. I'll probably buy a few if it's only $5. Nobody would guess that $28 was going to be the cap on that. Diablo 3 had seasons that cost no money at all. Lots of seasons. It didn't add a lot of new gameplay, but at least add a little bit of something, and it was 100% free. Now seasons in Diablo, you're going to have to buy a battle pass to fully enjoy. So that's another $20. So I think, again, going back to how the video game industry will change, and maybe not in ways we like, but in ways that is just natural and the way it has to be, I support very much the free-to-play model. Gaming as a service. Definitely the $60 games have a place and always will have a place. Those singular, standalone single-player experiences. But as much as it feels dirty to say this, gaming will continue to be healthy if there is honest, earnest, transparent, free-to-play models. And again, more games need to be like Path of Exile, where you vote with your wallet and you buy these, not because you're getting tricked into buying the skins, but because you legitimately appreciate what is being created and you're rewarding the developers with that money. And less like Diablo 4, where you're paying $70 plus another $28 for this skin, plus another $20 for a battle pass. Then half a year later, another $28 for another skin you may like, and so on and so forth. Trust the gamer, give them a good product, and guess what? We will reward you. That saying, if you build it, they will come. If you build a good game, we will pay.
I mean, I'm a perfect example of that with stupid Metroid Prime Remastered. I love that base game. You did a great job with the remaster, so guess what? I got a digital and physical. Because do that. Don't do Mario Strikers Battle League, Nintendo. Don't do this other garbage, other free-to-play companies. Rest in power. What was your Rumbleverse game?
Rumbleverse and multiverses and Splitgate and now truth be told, Splitgate's still running. They're just not adding new content to it. But anywho, side point. So Scott seems to be in agreement with me is that we do need to trust the market. We do need to trust the consumer to speak with their wallet. And as long as we are the ones giving money, I'm hoping that it does drive the market and flush out bad practices. Here's the fun thing about Diablo. What they're transparent about, Scott, is, hey, we're going to have a battle pass, but don't you worry, gamers. We got you back. It won't be live until July. So they said, hey, we have all this content that we're going to make you pay more for, or at least we're going to wait for you to beat the game before we start trying to nickel and dime you on top of it. And here's the thing. I don't like that they're doing that. $70 and then a paid battle pass on top of it. The thing is, I am a bit concerned. This is contradictory to what I said earlier. I'm a bit concerned people are going to give them a lot of money for it. I want to know if it's going to be worth it. That's what I want to know. And that's for anyone watching this that is playing Diablo. This is where Matt is asking you, please tell us something in the comments. Do you think what you're going to get out of that battle pass from Diablo, do you think, or do you even know if it's going to be worth that money? I want to know.
Yeah, with as much as I'm bashing it, so I'm getting the Diablo Battle Pass included. I bought the Ultimate Edition, so the Battle Pass was one of the things included in it. It's going to be very, very, very critical that they impress me next month. If I am not absolutely amazed with the skins they're provided and the quality of the season that they're creating, I will not get another Battle Pass. It is make or break for them. And even then, I'm not going to buy into every... Like Overwatch, I think a lot of their battle passes are kind of booty, and it really disappoints me that it is literally the same price as Overwatch's battle pass, wherein Overwatch is free to play and Diablo cost me $70. But yeah, it's going to be very critical, like me being blown off my feet with this first battle pass, if this is going to be something I will continue to support. So we'll see. Ball's in your court, Blizzard.
I bought the first battle pass for Multiverses, and they had two. They had 2 seasons, and I don't regret the first one. But when I looked at the reward for the second, I was like, that ain't worth it. And then no one else thought it was worth it, and now it's officially out of early access and being revamped, which is complete bullcrap. Here's a fix for you. And I mentioned this earlier. If you're going to use early access, use early access. Actually grow from it. Don't make money off of your early access and be like, we didn't make enough money. Haha, guys, it's early access. Bye. We didn't do anything wrong. You can use early access as a great Hades. Yeah, I was about to say, prime example. Do what Hades did. Make your game early access. You had a great game, and then you're like, here's all the feedback. Here's how we make it better. And then you have gamers like me who came in after they pretty much did all this extra cool stuff. I'm like, this is a perfect game. And you know what? I want to get Hades on my Switch, but I actually want to be a part of that early access. I think I might get it on PC.
Yeah, I'm not a PC gamer at all.
Same.
So far, the only PC game I played is Doki Doki. Sadly, in 2 days, there'll be a second PC game added to my
Fortnite.
Resume. But I am planning on buying the early access for Hades. And think about it, like developers, think about it. Think of all the people you pay to do QA. You're paying them to find the bugs for you. Now think, there's actually a group of people that would eagerly pay you to be QAs for them. And it's just like, why isn't every single game doing early access like that? Like, is there something you're hiding? You don't want them to know that, like, this game is a turd and you're just waiting until it's finished to have them discover it? But early access, I support it.
That is a perfect segue into the beginning of my fixes. It's like you set me up and you didn't even know it. Spend less. Companies. Look into my eyes. Spend less. We do not need to have brand name actors in our video games. As cool as that may be on the back end, we don't need them. One of the coolest video game characters of all time, now, in my opinion, is Kratos. Didn't know who the guy that voiced the new Kratos. Never heard of him. Now, I know the dude. I've seen the dude. Spend less. Like Scott said, dude, you have people, like, not everybody can be a Nintendo, like the big three, Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony. They have money to throw into their studios and say, you know what? You do QA for a year. A lot of these other companies, the third-party companies, they don't have that money. So pull a Hades and go, you know what? Even if you want to be stingy with it, say, this isn't open to everybody. You have to be invited. And now you're building hype for your game too. Hey, if you want to get invited to this, you should get in. You have to go through even if you do end up letting a bunch of people in to try it out, you've created that artificial hype, that artificial FOMO, right? Which that makes me gag a little bit in my mouth that I'm suggesting that, but spend less. It's very simple. Spend less. And so then that way, if you spend less, you can do the second thing. Take more risks. Weird games, wacky games, games we wouldn't have expected. Hades is not a game I would have expected. That game rocks. As much as I didn't like Returnal, I respect it for what it is. Death Stranding is so divisive, but you know what? Hideo Kojima was given money by Sony, and he got to make his game with this team, and let me tell you, it's endearing in its own way, and it's unique, and there are no other games like it. We want more of that weirdness. We want more good stuff. We don't want just another Mario. We don't want just another Halo, another God of War. As much as those could be great. Take more risks. So if you spend less money, you can take more risks. So if it fails, which it could, you're not like, well, darn, now we're going under. We put all 100% of our savings into that. No, you didn't, because you spent less. For a lot of these companies, how many episodes have we reminisced about games that we love from the past, some that are dead that we'd love to see come back, some that we just have fond memories of. How many episodes do you think, like what percentage do you think of just talking about good old games from the past?
Got to be like 85%, 90 even.
Easy. Remake and remaster those bad boys and bring them over for no cost. And then don't go say, well, The Last of Us Part 1, $70. No, I still have not gotten it. As much as I love that game, I want to get it. I ain't going to pay more than 40. I'm not. If you would have released that at the right price, you would have sold a bunch. And now you've got extra fun for something you didn't do anything with. Now, granted, Part 1, they did do something with it, but not nearly the work of a new game. Like a God of War Ragnarok. That's why God of War Ragnarok was great too. They reused assets. So they could spend less money on that and put it elsewhere. Which leads me to, this is probably my biggest point. Now, I got into PlayStation because I got a Nintendo 64. I've already went through the story, so I got into PlayStation. I got a PlayStation 1. PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 were baller for me. They got huge. They instantly started rivaling Nintendo, which is like, if you look back, it's like, wow, that's kind of a crazy thought. Why? Because they had all sorts of games on it. They had little games, kind of little games, medium games, big games. They had all sorts of stuff. What happened to budget games? What happened to mid-tier games I'm not expecting a game of the year from it, but damn it, I'm expecting a good time. Hyrule Warriors is like one of my favorite personal games. I will not recommend that game to people because it's a very distinct game, but I love it. And it came out at I think it was like $50 at the time. The redo was like 60 or whatever, but it had all the DLC that was in it. Where are those games at these days? Like Outright. You've spoken about Outriders before, Matt. If that came out brand new as a $30 or $40 game, you having played it, and I actually can play it now because it's part of my PlayStation subscription, so I could download it and play it with you. Which
Nice.
maybe we will. I don't know. Would you say that game would have done better, performed better, just been better overall if it didn't come out as a 60? I think it was $60 at the time. If it came out as a $30 or $40 game. Or, as Scott mentioned, free to play, but then you have the other things, not bogging it down, but just as like, hey, if you like this game, you should buy this skin or buy this gun or buy this pack, whatever.
You know what? I actually think Outriders would have done well with a free to play model because you get some crazy outfits in that already just by playing it. If they had basically put that with it is a looter shooter, it would actually have done pretty well, I think, with the free to play model, and it might have actually made a lot of money. To answer your first question is if it came out at 30, 40 and I know what I know about the game, do I think it'd be worth it? Yeah, at the time, especially if you can all play it together and stuff like that. It's not a great game, but I think to your point, we have two levels of games: AAA, $60, $70, and indie. That's it. Where's our middle ground? And I love that point, Mike, because you're true. I remember getting so many middle ground games as a kid, not just used games, just games that came out of listen.
Do you remember
we know this
games like Mad World?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was on the Wii.
I knew
wasn't
that would
it?
hit something with you. I remember that game too, and I was like, I remember games like Killer 7. How stupid was that game? But I love that game. I'm sure you listening, you watching, I'm sure every one of us is like, oh, I do remember some of those. They weren't great, but they were enjoyable. And for the price, come on.
I'm with you 100%.
And it's just, and even within that, not every AAA game is considered, I would consider Splatoon 3 a AAA game. But that's not on the same level as Zelda or God of War or others, right? I don't consider that. Or even, I wouldn't even consider it on the level of, let's say, Halo, right? That's not the same. But it is a AAA. Maybe it's a $50 AAA. And then you've got $60. Then you got $65. Why do we have to settle on this is the price? And then we have to wait for a sale to get to the price that we want? to my point is that we need more of those middles that will bring in. They'll just keep bringing in cash because people go, well, that's $30. That looks fun. You shoot people. I mean, Outriders. Honestly, when I looked it up, it reminded me a lot of Warframe. I don't know if you know what Warframe is. I've played
Mhm.
Warframe. I like it. That's a free to play game, and it is still popular. I think it's been out like 6 years, 7 years, and it's still popular. Go figure. You look at to Scott's point. I'm really glad that you brought up the free to play. The free to play, because like that's another thing too that we've been conditioned to. As soon as we hear free to play, the devil, get away. Which I would say if it's on mobile, it's probably the devil, right? Like on your phone, right?
Except Marvel Snap, which is worth it. You all should play it. Continue.
I set myself up for that one. But like we've been conditioned, and I think that like Scott has pointed out Path of Exile. And that sounds very much. It's funny that you mentioned the seasons in Diablo 4 and that you have to pay for it, and I'm thinking to myself like, as much as you don't want to play it, Scott, Fortnite, they do seasons. And guess what? The first season that I was actually playing, I was like, oh, it has Geralt from The Witcher. And it was his model from The Witcher 3. I have to get it. So I bought the season. The next season, it was Attack on Titan. I like that show. I don't care about that. And so I just passed on it. But then they were like, that's fine. But you know what's not part of the season? Hey, Miles Morales and Spider-Man 2099, Miguel. Well, hot damn, that looks pretty tempting to me. Like, they give you options, and none of it takes away from the game. It is literally just, I'm a goober. I like my X-Men. I want to play as my X-Men with guns. Why not? That's it. And they do it the right way, and go figure, it's successful. Fortnite raked in so much money. Epic just basically created their own ecosystem, their own launcher to launch games on. Like, think about that. What was the game it copied from? PUBG.
Yep.
And where's PUBG, by the way?
It's still very popular, but I never enjoyed PUBG. It just looks like eye vomit.
Yes.
Whereas
100.
Fortnite is just bright and colorful and easy to pick up. And I can't believe I am on a podcast about video games where I consistently praise Fortnite. Because I was curmudgeon gamer back in the day. I'm like, Fortnite. I was in a state of mind where I'm like, how dare people enjoy things differently than me? And now it's just like, okay, you know what? I need to stop that. There's a lot of wide variety in taste and preferences, and this game is so popular for a reason. Let me find out. Not every popular game I care for, like a previous podcast. Games we think are personally a bit overrated. For me, it was Halo. But Fortnite, I'm like, you know what? This is great. The kids like it because anyone can play it. Like, you can have no money. You cannot have PlayStation Online, Xbox Online, whatever. Free to play games, you can play for free online. You don't need to pay for a service anymore. If you guys didn't know that, I think that's a cool feature. And I really like that from an accessibility standpoint. Not every family has money, but if they have a PS4 or a Switch, they can play this game for free with their friends. That is cool. I know I segued into meaningless Fortnite praise, but listen, Fortnite's a good game. It's a fun game. It's a good group game. And I'm really looking forward to playing with Scott and Mike on Friday.
So close. But it's to the point of like, look, sometimes you got to take that risk, and you can take the risk if you don't put all your eggs in one basket. If you don't just say, we have to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on this game because we have these actors and actresses and these people in front, and we got to do this, and we got motion cap, blah, blah. No, just make a good damn game, and people will come. As Scott said, build a good thing, and they will come, right? And then also, I think that kind of contributes to this, adjust the shareholders' expectations and don't let them drive. Yes, they have a say for sure. They paid money to be on this board, to have a say, to ask questions, to say, what are you doing in this company that I have invested in? I get all that. They are not game developers. Most of them are not even gamers. Do not let them drive. Done. And I see that happen so often with the smaller companies where they're like, oh man, it only sold this much. And the company's like, what do you mean only? That's great. Because they didn't let the shareholders dictate, drive. We want more money. You need to put microtransactions in. You need to do that. And that's essentially what happened with Redfall from what I had read. And then the people up top caved and went, okay, yeah, this is what we need to do. And people up top not being in Microsoft, being at Arcane or whatever company that is now. So don't let them drive. Don't let them. They're there to voice, ask questions. Obviously, I get that. Don't let them drive the game part of things. Don't let them do it. And the last thing. So I said spend less, right? But if you are going to spend money, pay your people fairly and don't rush them. This is the benefit of reusing assets. This is the benefit of creating those mid-tier games while you work on your big game and you spend your time on the big game and you got your paid in company QA for a year and you got all this stuff. You release a couple of, I wouldn't call them turds, but you just release those, like that was enjoyable. I like that Outriders. $30 free to play. I had a grand old time. Free to play, and I spent $20 because I wanted that skin of Leon Kennedy running through space and shooting things. And all the enemies are zombies now or whatever, right? If you pay your people, they will feel like they're doing a good job, which will make them want to do a better job, which fuels everything to make a good game in the end of the day. If you treat them like crap, they don't care about the project, and then everybody else, the product's gonna suck. If you look at it, that's not even looking at the people side of things. I know that kind of sounded heartless, but like it's logic. Just stop and think about these things. Anyway, that was a lot of fixes that I just kind of vomited all over you guys. Verbal vomit. What do you guys have to say to any or all of that?
I'll stand by my answers. Let the consumer drive, and hopefully they make the right decision. And so far, I think they got a pretty decent track record in putting a kibosh on bad practices. I love the idea of mid-tier games coming back. I absolutely do. And it should just be simple. And this is HR Matt speaking. If you pay your people a decent wage, they're going to work hard and be motivated for you. That's just simple business. And there's a reason that like investors and the board are often like viewed as villains in TV shows and movies and real life. There's a reason. Their whole goal is to make money. I think if a game is good, it will be appreciated more so in this day and age. There are games that are like, this is a cult classic. It did bad then, but now it's good now. I think we're past that day and age. I think if a game's good, people are going to be like, yep, this is good. And people will play it. I got nothing else to add in regards to that one. I really don't.
I guess the only thing for me, and this may be a little bit of a contradiction based off something I said before involving God of War, but going back to what Mike said about reusing assets, I think we need to chill out a little bit on the graphics arm race. Like, oh yeah, I can't wait for the PS6. Then my games will look even better. I can't wait for the Xbox Series XXX. Oh, okay, maybe a better name than that. ZZZ or something. Even better graphics on that one. I think as much as I diss Nintendo, and I think Nintendo needs to have a new console a little bit sooner than every 10 years, at least they aren't graphics obsessed. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to word this. Hopefully you guys...
No, I'm with you. I'm with you because here's a real life example. I inherited a Lincoln from my grandma when she passed away. Super fancy car, all these bells and whistles. I freaking hate this car. I hate this car. I still have it because it's paid for and I'm not an idiot. I have the car, but it has so many bells and whistles, means there's so many things that break and things are breaking. My radio won't turn off. My AC only works on one side. The other side just blasts scorching heat. This is a analogy for games that focus too much on graphical output, that it just lessens actual gameplay. Gameplay over graphics. Now, I don't want something that's just ugly. Like, I don't really like retro games. Give me something that's clear. That's why I like cell shading. That's why I like Fortnite. That's why I like Overwatch. I can see what's going on. So I am 100% with you. I don't care how realistic it is. Just make it fun and make the gameplay good. Sorry.
Yes, like No, like, I'm really happy there's somebody else that agrees. Like, I'm at the point, like, back 10, 15 years ago, a selling point for me getting God of War is how pretty that game looked. Now I don't really care. You can talk about all your ray tracing, how good the shadows look, how great the water is. Is the game fun? That's what I care about. And I'm going to try to word this the right way. Hopefully, if I botch it, you understand at least my intention. What do you think was more of a technically difficult game to make? Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, or I don't know, Halo Infinite? What do you think probably was more technically difficult? Which one probably had more people working on it? I think it's safe to say it's Halo. Why was it Halo? It wasn't people working on the gameplay. It wasn't people working on the story. It was people working on the graphics. And the amount of effort that goes into making those graphics look pretty, 8K compatible, is a lot more work than it takes to go and make, textures and character models in Tears of the Kingdom. What game is the one making money like, like it's coming from trees, growing on trees? Is it Halo Infinite or is it Zelda Tears of the Kingdom? So I think, again, we don't need to be doing this arms race of, diminishing returns of like, oh, this game looks pretty. Let's go and make it even more and more expensive. Because I guarantee you that is where a significant chunk of all these games' budgets are going. So going to Mike's point, spend less money. Hey, maybe you wouldn't need to be charging $70 for AAA game. Maybe you could even undercut everybody and do $50. And, hey, this is going out 1080p. It's not even 4K. Does it still look great on your TV? Yes. Is it cel shaded? And does it need to go and have 8K compatible graphics? No. And that's okay. And I think we need to go and stop, being such snobs looking at all these different games. Like, oh, there's texture pop-ins. Oh, I can see a little bit of jag on this model. Are you having fun? Are you having a good time playing this game? It would make you even more happy than, paying $70 for a game that's fun, paying $50 for a game that's super fun. You can probably do that if you're going to reuse the assets a little bit more and you're not super, obsessed about, oh, gotta make this utilize the full capabilities of the PlayStation 6 now.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I am so glad because, again, I agree with you. Like, the Switch is weird to me because I'm with you guys. We need Nintendo we need something new. Okay, it's finally shown. I think Tears of the Kingdom is a great swan song for that system. I think it's great. I know we got Pikmin 4 still, but I'm not looking at that as like the big one, right? Like Tears of the Kingdom, great swan song. Can games get any better than Tears of the Kingdom on the Switch? I don't think so. Technically, I think that's the absolute limit. Okay.
What's kind of funny? I agree that Tears of the Kingdom is the pinnacle of the Switch and the swan song. And look at what was the swan song for the Wii U, Breath of the Wild. So a little bittersweet in that regard, if you think about it.
Well, it also started the Switch. Like, that's what caused the Switch to be successful was Breath of the Wild. Like, if Breath of the Wild wasn't there, the Switch probably would have flopped. Or not as sold. It wouldn't have sold as well as it has. But what's interesting to me about it is, here is a system that is in its 7th freaking year. And it's still selling like crazy is it because of the graphics? Is it because of the super cool, awesome features of the controller? No. What is it selling? Why is the Switch selling like crazy again in its 7th freaking year? It's because of a game. A great game. And then people get it and they go, well, I hadn't got one yet, or maybe I had one at the beginning, sold it and got it back. I missed a bunch. Hey, why don't I go get... And that's where the mid-tier games would be great if freaking Nintendo did it too. I got this for 20. I got this for 30. I got this for 10. I got this giant library. The PS4. Imagine coming in. Scott, you came in with the PS5. You didn't have a PS4. You had this plethora of stuff to look back on, right? How big was the jump graphically between PS4 and PS5? How would you best describe that?
It is prettier. It is.
But how much prettier? $500? prettier.
I think it's less that it's prettier and more that the hardware can better keep up than my PS4 did at the end. At the end, my PS4 is like, Matt, you need to kill me.
It's
Let
the
me die.
functional things, right? Like it's not taking off like an airplane,
Yeah.
and the loading. Those are my favorite. It's not the graphical. It's the I can push a button and it turns on. That's my favorite thing. The SSD is my favorite thing.
Yeah, let's put it this way. When it just came to me right now, what's really interesting is Resident Evil 4 Remake came out. Everybody across the board saying, like, this is such a good-looking game. Oh, it's prettier. Resident Evil 4, when that came out, everybody's like, this is such a good-looking game. This is so pretty. And now you go back and you play the Resident Evil 4 Remake, and then if you play the original Resident Evil 4, you may be like, oh, this looks rough. The Resident Evil 4, the graphics changed. Did it get a demake? Did it get a downgrade? Is it running at lower resolution than it did before? No. We got spoiled and our standards changed and our expectations changed. And this game that kept us perfectly happy and content now is no longer cutting it with its graphics. Nothing changed about the game. And I feel like that's such a weird thing, especially when you go and look at other forms of entertainment like books and movies and music. You don't watch a movie from 20 years ago and it's like, oh, yeah.
I think the difference, though, is controls. Like function at like doing it. That's where we get spoiled. Not graphics, though. And maybe it has changed it. But that's an interesting point. I would like to see longer lifespans for consoles. And you just increment up. Kind of like these things. Where like, you can go 4 or 5 generations and go, I don't need it.
You know what? Again, like, I hate to be the Microsoft fanboy in this group. I like Microsoft's approach. I mean, eventually they're going to have to sunset support for Xbox One, but the Xbox One X and One S or whatever, I forget all their names. It's like, this is just a more powerful version. You can still play these games and you may not get 4K output. It may take a little bit longer to download. And I mean, basically all the PC gamers out there is like, yes, that's what PC gaming is. And you know what? Kudos to PC gaming. I like the approach that, I do think it's long overdue for a new Nintendo console, but maybe like 7 years in, you release the Switch Pro. Just like the Switch, like it's kind of like they did with the OLED, except maybe put a little bit more in there than just a prettier screen. Same thing with the PS5. Maybe instead of working on the PS6 already, you're working on the PS5 Pro, and then PS Pro X, and then kind of extend the cycle. Instead of releasing a new console every 7 years, you release a new console every 12 years, and every 5 years,
full on new console.
PC. Yeah, full on. Like instead of PS6, then we're just getting the PS5 Pro and the PS5 Pro Plus. Give it a little bit of legs like that.
I love a console that has longevity. PS4 lasted me from the day it launched to pretty much when I got the PS5. I was happy with it. I have no issues with that and just focusing on that. But the Switch is in dire need of a decent upgrade. Holy crap. It's time. Please give us something that can go 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
Please.
So there you go, companies. You have it. We're smart. We know we know how to fix things. So hire us. Hire us to fix your things. You know what? You just got all that for absolutely free. This podcast is free
I
to play.
expect money. No, I want you to pay me for that.
They're going to send you a $50
straight. The check's in the mail. Check's in the mail. It's just a roll of pennies.
No, you can just get a coupon for $50 steak.
It's a free high five from Matt. Let's go.
AEW Fight Forever. Just give me those extra 10 wrestlers on day one for free, and we'll call it square.
If they turn it around on that, man, I will go back into buying that game. That makes me so angry. I'm so angry. I want to love you. Anyway, Scott, do you have a rant for us tonight?
Oh, do I have a rant for you?
Back over there, he just doesn't care. He's going off on a crowd of people, throwing words in the air like he just don't care. He's yelling at all of us sheeple. It's a Scotty Borda body rant. It's a Scotty Borda body rant. It's a Scotty Borda body rant. It's rant time.
Let me tell you something, brother. You know what really grinds my gears? Cyclists. You're all, oh, look at me. I'm cycling to Whole Foods. I know I played tennis with Pip and Jamie yesterday, but I need to get a little bit more physical activity, and I'm going to drink my latte while cycling.
Scott, tag me in.
You know what? Tag in.
All right.
I'm banning porta potty rant.
Cyclist, you guys suck. All right. I have a bike. I enjoy riding my bike. You know what I hate? How you think you are God's gift to the road. You take priority over so much. Listen, I don't want to run you over. I'm not going to run you over. But I hate that you take over all these roads. When the weather gets nice, I cannot drive down the freaking street without a wave of cyclists in your very revealing clothing because it makes you more aerodynamic. Why are you spending so much money on this? It costs so much money to own a bike and buy that and buy all this equipment. I have a friend that when he can't bike in the winter, he bought this like $2,000 contraption to just put it in front of his TV and ride his actual bike without it moving. And I'm just like, why? It is a culture. You do it for vanity. You do it so people know that you're a cyclist. Have you ever met a cyclist that has not told you that they are not a cyclist? The answer is no. You are annoying. One of my favorite pictures I have on my phone is I was walking around a park and there's a big sign with the bicycle on it with the big X, basically saying no cyclist. I took that picture, I did a thumbs up, and I sent it to my friend because you suck. Stop taking up my roads.
There we have it. So for listeners and viewers that were like, "What the hell? That wasn't Scotty Porta Potty." He was tagged in, man, and we have footage that you won't see, but we know about, and it's wonderful. But he good tag. I agree. I have nothing to contribute to that. Oh, I do. Stop riding your bike in the middle of the road. Share. You want to share the road? Then freaking share the road. Get over. I have a metal vehicle horse that will run you over. Move over.
You know what? You may think you're better than me, a car driver, but at least my seat doesn't go and stick into my ass like yours. So, ha.
Well, that could, depending. That could be a good thing. Depending. Anyway, hey, that was our group porta potty rant.
Before we wrap up this episode, poop. Every episode.
That was for you, Cube.
Yep. We got to talk about poop. Now we have to. It's a principal thing. All right. Well, cool. That sure was interesting. So what do you guys think, you listeners, you viewers, what do you think about the fixes that we talked about? They're great, right? They're perfect. Like there's nothing, you could just, go ahead and tell us how awesome we are in the comments. That's cool. But seriously though, what do you think about the gaming industry, all the stuff that's going on, the fixes that we talked about, the problems that we talked about? Are we crazy? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Kind of agree? What do you think? Let us know. We want to know. And share this with your friends. You should like, subscribe, all that jazz. I hope that I get to see a whole bunch of people out when we stream Fortnite with Scott and he ends up saying, damn it, that was actually a really fun time. Anyway, that being said, we appreciate you. As always, thanks for staying till the very end. And until next time, bye.